So Napier is a yield trading protocol very similar to Pendle or Spectra. And then it's been launched for less than 1 year's time. However, the TVL been growing really fast recently. And the reason why the TVL been growing really fast recently is because of the launch of the V2. For V2 of Napier, you can call it a curated version of Pendle or Spectra. So first we have to compare these two trading protocol a little bit. So for Pendle, it is a protocol that is heavily monitored and controlled by the centralized developers team. And even though it's permissionless on the contract level, however, every listing of the new pool, new PT, new YT onto the UI so far still require permission from the developers team. And then even though the developers team is planning to make the UI also permissionless, however, there's still a lot of limitation for external protocol to list their own assets or for other asset managers to list the third-party assets onto the Pendles, because the Pendles also have the mechanism called the verification by the Pendles team. And then if the market is not verified by the Pendle teams itself, exposure is still limited. On top of that, it is not common for third-party asset managers, for example, like the NEV Labs or like the Reset Labs, these kind of curators very prominent on Morpho or on Euler to deploy a pool on Pendle. So Pendle is the best place for those mature established protocol who already launched their own asset, for example, Resolve, USR, or Falcom USDF, to collaborate with Pendle and roll their pools built on top of their own assets on a platform. And it's not ideal for example, third-party asset manager or a third-party organization to deploy their own pools on Pendle, because the exposure or the engagement will be pretty low. However, on the other hand, Spectra is completely permissionless. It means that either on contract or on UI, you don't need a permission from the developers teams to deploy a new pool. However, they also come with a few downsides. The downside is that there's no parameters for the pool creator to set so that he can still control or manage the pool later on when the pool is live. The upside is that it's super scalable. So it means that every kind of institution, for example, if you're an asset manager, if you're an asset issuer, if you're a DeFi protocol, you can all come to Spectra to launch your own pool, any kind of asset. So it's super scalable. However, because it's permissionless, the smart contract is like a lot of stuff is hard coded and is immutable. So it means that it's very hard for this third-party organization to manage this pool later on throughout the life cycle of this pool. So Spectra, very scalable and very permissionless, however hard to manage. And for Pendle, basically not very permissionless, and then therefore not very scalable, and however it's very mature and very safe. And I would say Napier is trying to strike a balance in between the Spectra and Pendle. It's trying to do so by introducing a new role called Curators onto the yield trading ecosystem. The role Curator is not, you cannot find a role of a curator in Pendle or in Spectra. So Napier introduced this new role. And the function of this new roles, in addition to setting up the pool, he can also adjust the parameters of the pool in the mid-life cycle or when the pool is live. And then he can also inject liquidity or withdraw liquidity as a curator to monitor and also adjust the pool asset balance to attract more people to trade the listed products. And the beauty of this design is that it opened up opportunities for all kind of institutions, all kind of organizations to deploy their own PT pools. For example, right now, if a hedge fund want to have their own PT or want to deploy different kind of leverage strategies, they might be able to do it on Pendle. However, if you do it on Pendle, there are a few concerns. The first one is that they don't know how the team is going to manage this pool of PT on Pendle. And the second concern is that they have zero control of the integration of this PT with the other DeFi protocols. So it means that they cannot choose the oracles, they cannot choose the sources of fund, they cannot choose the strategy they would like to use on Pendle. It's all dependent on how Pendle's team and how the deployer of the pool on Pendle's platform, in the USR's case, probably Resolve, how this team going to decide these parameters. However, if you do it on Napier, he can deploy the pool on USR by himself, and then he can also have full control over who he likes to integrate with. And then he will leverage his own network to make the integration process also permissionless. So for example, if I'm a hedge fund today, I can deploy a PT and YT on the USR, and the liquidity pool will be set up by Napier on Curve permissionlessly. So it means that if he also happens to have control over the gauge, he can set out a bribe. So it means that he can also provide LP for his own PT and YT on Curve liquidity pool, and also farming the reward from the Curve emission. And for the PT and YT, because Napier also make the integration process with his partner protocol permissionless, So it means that on the day when the pool is live, he can immediately build leverage on the PT and YT. So that is only one use case for the Napier's model. It introduced a role of curator. So curator can choose whether they want to set up a pool for themselves or they want to set up to face the public. And if they want to set up a pool to face the publics, the Napier's design is also very useful in the sense that the user cannot really tell if the pool is supported by the protocol's team or not. So if you go to Pendle, you can see that there's a lot of pool. And some pool is very abundant in terms of the liquidity. The liquidity is always pretty stable, about 5 million and even up to 10 million. However, for some pool, like those kind of assets that are listed on Pendle, via Pendle, liquidity is very poor. It's like always less than 1 million and sometimes less than 500K. However, on Napier, when users see a PT is listed, the curator can promote this. For example, let's say curator is the NDV Capital or the Reset Labs. They can promote this pool on their own website, and therefore user, just like how user choose the lending market on Morpho, they would know this pool is monitored by this asset manager, and therefore their reputation will somewhat guarantee that there's always enough liquidity left in the pool. So always the yield is always going to stay within a certain level, and then there's not going to be a significant liquidity. When the pool is facing the public side, the curator's reputation somewhat guarantee that first, there's going to be enough liquidity in the pool, and then second, the price of the PT and YT going to be somewhat monitored, and the third is that it's going to be the market making activity executed by these deployers and therefore the curators. So this is why Napier TVO growing pretty fast, because it basically find a niche that is where the yield trade market TVO is very huge. However, there is no place for third-party asset managers or third-party DeFi protocol to launch and manage their own products. So that is a bit of an introduction. And then right now I'm going to quickly walk through, do a bit of the user guides about how user can choose their own pool, and they can also see the relevant parameters when they're thinking whether they want to hold on to the YT or PT. For example, here you can select the website as users, and then go to trade here. You see there's a lot of PT listed by different counterparties. And the asset, for example, we choose the CUSDO here. The CUSDO is the stablecoin issued by OpenAtom and then backed by US Treasury. However, you can see like here, it's curated. It means that deployed and managed by NV Capital. And then therefore we can understand that NV Capital, who is pretty prominent on Morpho and who has been doing a really good job curating the pools, is currently managing this pool. So it means that there's going to be at least a certain level of liquidity and a certain level of market making activities. So if you look at here, you can see that liquidity is actually pretty abundant and the yield is also somewhat stable. So it means that the pool is actually managed and the curator, NV Capital, is preventing the pool from the significant volatility. And the goal, because it's a public facing pool, so meaning this goal is to attract the TVO, and the NV Capital can charge the management fee and also the minting fee, for example, during the process. So as a user, the first thing you need to check is that what asset is the PD and the YT about, and then second, you need to check if the vote is verified. Verified means that it's actually recognized by the Napier itself, and then even if it's not verified, you are still guaranteed that the pool itself is safe, because the pool, the contract is audited and the curator has no power to withdraw or their assets from the pool. The only thing the curator can do is to inject the liquidity into the pool and then to adjust parameters such as the fee, minting fee, redemption fee, or to adjust the parameter such as that the date to maturity. There is no way, even if it's verified, the user can still deposit into the pool. And you can see that it's powered by Curve. It means that with the help of Napier, the pool is integrated with the Curve. So it means that the liquidity pool is already live on Curve. So it means that you can not only provide liquidity on Napier, you can also provide liquidity directly on Curve. And the gauge for this is also live. It means that you can, even if you don't want to buy the PT and YT directly, you can also supply liquidity onto Curve. And there's gauge for it. So it means that you can check with NEV Capital, and then probably they're going to incentivize the pool themselves, and then therefore you're able to find the reward. So you can see, you can choose whether you want to buy the PT and the YT, and then choose the price charts for your entry point. So this is for the trading of PT and YT. Other than that, it's completely the same as trading on Pendle or Spectra. Once you trade a PT, if you choose to hold to maturity, you'll get the implied APY here. However, if you choose to sell before the maturity, there's going to be P&L outside of the implied APY. And if you choose to hold YT, that's a bit more complicated. So you're basically, if you see here, it means that it's the loan APY of YT is minus 100%. It means that with the current level of the net APY means the online asset APY. With the current level of APY, the YT price will not be able to compensate. So till the maturity, the income from the holding on to the YT of the USDO, which is the interest, the yield, will not be able to compensate the price you pay for it to obtain the YT. So therefore, that's the reason why it's minus 100%. However, it means that the fact that it's minus 100% means that people are still buying it, and then probably they're from in the airdrop, because YT also have the billion leverage for you to get the multiplied airdrop points. And then, so that is the trading of YT. So when we trade YT, if you're farming the airdrops, you have to think about if the current price level is good enough for you to make sure that you're going to earn more from airdrop compared to the price you pay for the YT. And so if you're trading the yields, you have to think about if the yield is going to goes up when you buy the YT. If that is the case, probably you'll be okay to buy the YT. However, if you are trading yields and then you're not sure whether the yields will goes up or goes down, that's a bit risky, because when you buy the YT and the yields actually goes down later, you'll be walking away with a negative P&L. So that's about trading YT. And for pool, it's for providing LP. So you can provide LP directly on Napier. You can also do that on Curve. So right now you can see here, it is like the base of APY is around 12 to 13%. It means that when you provide the liquidity into the LP pool, you'll be holding part of the underlying asset, which is CUSDO. You'll also be holding part of the PT, and the net and the PT APY for staying in this pool is around 11%, and the net APY 1.51% is the LP APY. So in total, even if you don't have any boost, you'll be getting like 12.68%. And then because Napier is doing the airdrop right now, so they run the estimate FDV. So they are telling you that with the airdrop point, Napier point right now, your APY probably going to be around 37%. However, this is only for estimation, and then you can always adjust the FDV of the NPR token. And then if you think like it's not going to be as high as 100 million, you can also cut it in half, and the APY will drop accordingly. And then this is only the LP APY native on the Napier, and then because the LP pool for this pool is also live on Curve, so you can also go to Curve to see if there's any gauge weighting for this one, and if yes, it means that on top of the pool APY here, you'll be also getting the CRV emission. So that is about the LP. Click into here, you'll be able to see PT, the PT fixio, and the and a YT underlying APY. And going to here, you're going to see the LP pool APY. So it's basically the same as Spectra and Pendle. The biggest difference is that there's a curator, monitor, and manage the flow, and therefore there's a somewhat certain level of guarantee based on the reputation of curator in terms of liquidity and in terms of the market volatility. So that's about the user guide for Napier and why Napier TVO been growing pretty fast, because it somewhat strike a balance between Spectra and also strike balance between Spectra and Pendle.